So, as a non native Spanish speaker, there are some things that I do currently that I think everyone should be doing if you're bilingual, particularly if you speak Spanish. And again, I know I have an audience that's across the entire globe, but particularly in my experience speaking Spanish here in the United States, there are things that I have started to do. And I know that's such a vague statement, but there are just things that I've started to do that I think are underrated and things that a lot of people don't take advantage of when they become bilingual. And so in this video, I'd like to talk about 5 things that you need to start doing if you're not doing them already. And this is particularly for those of you that have reached an intermediate to advanced level in Spanish. I must say I'm getting over a cold. One of my students at school got me sick earlier this week. So if I sound a little weird, that's why. But let's get into these 5 things really quickly. So over the past few years, I've noticed that there's been an uptick. I noticed that there was an uptick in the number of telemarketer calls that I was receiving. And so I don't know why I never had this idea. I never thought to do this when I became fluent in Spanish. But long story short, guys, over the past month, excuse me, not month, past year, I'm thinking about this past month and the fact that I haven't gotten any telemarketer calls. But either way, um, over the past year, what I've done is anytime someone calls me from an unknown number, I respond like this. And guys, I don't respond to numbers that I don't have saved in general. But if I do pick it up because it has a Metro Atlanta area code, those are the few calls that I do pick up. Um, I'll respond like this, hello, or I'll change it and say hello. And then immediately, once I pick up that it's someone trying to sell me something, trying to solicit something, someone trying to scam me, I automatically go into this. ¿Con quién hablo? ¿Quién me está hablando? ¿Por qué usted me está llamando, pues? ¿Por qué? No entiendo. And usually, guys, our numbers get shared through these data mining websites or whatever. And so the people on the other line obviously expect me to speak English. And so typically they respond with, sir, can you speak to me in English? I don't understand that language that you're speaking. And I'll always respond with, lo siento mucho, no hablo inglés. O sea, hay alguien allá que habla español. And guys, what I've noticed, and again, I know this is like a little small thing, a little small hack, but what I've noticed is that there has been an inverse correlation in terms of the number of times that I've done this and the number of telemarketing calls that I've received. Again, the more I do this, the less I get called from telemarketers. And so I think this is something that you should do. If someone's calling you that you don't want to speak with, or someone's calling you and you want them to think that they have the wrong number, if they don't know that you speak Spanish, respond to these calls in Spanish. Again, I can't tell you how many times a telemarketer, a solicitor has called me and I've just been like, no entiendo lo que me dices. O sea, ¿por qué me estás llamando? ¿Cómo conseguiste mi número, pues? O sea, no entiendo. Enfadado, les respondo. Like, I respond to them kind of annoyed. And again, I've noticed a decrease in the number of telemarketing calls that I've received. You must be careful with this, though. And the reason I say this is because obviously there are instances where we get calls from people that we weren't expecting, but that are calls that we need to accept. I remember distinctly, and this is why I said I've been doing this for a while, because when I started my graduate school program early last year, I got a number. My school is based in Indiana, and so I got a call from a number with an Indiana area code, and those are the numbers that I typically perceive to be telemarketers. Well, I picked up the call and started speaking to this gentleman in Spanish, and the guy was like, "Is this not Michael Benjamin? Did you not recently apply for the graduate school program here at the American College of Education?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I apologize, I apologize." Like I had to explain my way out of that awkward situation where I was almost, my contact number was almost disconnected from my graduate school account. And so be careful with this. But again, this is the first thing that you can try to employ. Again, it doesn't only have to work for telemarketers. If someone that you've tried to disconnect with is contacting you and they don't know you speak Spanish, that's the key. Try this and see if it works. Again, I know this is like a little random funny point, but it's something that I regularly do, and I think it could help you out as well. The next thing that you need to be doing, if you're not doing it already, as a Spanish speaker, as a second language learner, is you need to be speaking to strangers. Now, before I started learning Spanish, I would say maybe when I was younger, I was a little shy, but as an adult, I would never have characterized myself as shy, but I was definitely much more reserved in my own world. if I catch eye contact with somebody, I'm gonna speak. I'm from Georgia, at least the part of Georgia where I'm from. I speak to people when I catch eye contact with them, but I was never one to ever walk up on a stranger and just start a random conversation. I would never do that. But I say my new perspective on this is that if you are bilingual, if you speak another language, you need to do this. You need to get in the habit of doing this out in public. I've mentioned this before on my channel multiple times, and that the thing that I've mentioned is that I have a personal challenge for myself. And that challenge is whenever I'm out in public and I hear Spanish spoken, I would say like 90% of the instances where I hear Spanish spoken, I simply make a comment to the person that's speaking Spanish. I say something to them, or I ask them where they're from, or I ask them about themselves, or something like that. And the reason I say you should do this is because depending on where you live, depending on your ethnic background, depending on your phenotype, right, it's going to either be, it depends on who you are, but it could be unexpected that you speak Spanish. And so what this does is it opens up so many opportunities to meet new people. It opens up your opportunities to use the Spanish language in your area. It's just a great thing that you should implement. And I don't have a profound reason other than anecdotal experiences that I've had as a result of this. So um, because of this little personal challenge that I've had with myself, last year I was in a grocery store and I heard a Mexican woman and her maybe like teenage son. I heard them speaking Spanish in the Publix or something, and I started asking them where they were from. I could hear a little Mexican accent, so I guessed that they were Mexican, and so I started speaking with them or whatever. And the lady and I ended up getting into a long conversation, and she just kept saying, "Oh, qué tan buen educado eres, o sea, eres un buen chico, qué bueno, qué bueno. Pásame tu número para que hablemos, ¿no?" And so we exchanged numbers, and guys, since then, I can say that this lady and her family, her immediate family, are going to be a part of the social fabric of my life. They will be friends, long-term friends in my life as a result of just me getting out of my comfort zone and speaking to her. Last weekend, she and her son, who's I think is like 16 or 17 now, they invited me out to eat. I basically spent the entire day with this Mexican family from like 12 p.m. in the afternoon to like 7 p.m. in the afternoon, just going to different markets around Atlanta, just like chilling with their family, basically, right? And at this point in my journey with Spanish, I'm not looking for like immersive experiences or things like that, but that's something that you can get as a result of just opening your mouth and speaking to people. And what I found is that this has helped me in other aspects of my life as well when it comes to getting out of your comfort zone, speaking to people. I have no problem right now um, walking up to somebody and starting a conversation, even in English. Again, I read people's vibes pretty well, but for the most part, I have no problem with that. And so I just say you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to miss people if you're not using the tool that you have, which is this other language, which in this case is Spanish. Or if you've learned another language and you hear it in your local area, please open your mouth and use it. That's the second thing that I think you should be doing if you have become bilingual. The third thing that you should be doing if you have become bilingual, if you speak Spanish or any second language, is you need to tell everyone that you know that you speak Spanish in this case, or whatever the language is. You need to tell people that you speak that language. And why is that? I found that in my social circles, in my community, at my job, in any place where I frequent, um, I don't go to the gym to work out anymore, but at the time when I did work out at the gym, I'm at my bank because I go to a bank regularly, and I'm familiar with the tellers and all that. Any area that I frequent, when people know that I speak Spanish, um, I become the de facto translator. Now, this is a double-edged sword. It's una espada de doble filo. I like this because what happens is if my mom, for example, at her job, she often finds herself um, having to have meetings with Spanish-speaking families, and so there have been many times where um, I'm getting ready for work or I'm on the way to work, and she's like, "Michael, Michael, 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 I need help. I need help. Can you tell them I'm here with a family? Can you tell them that I need this or that I need them to prepare this for the meeting?" And so, long story short, I've seen this take place with my mother. I've seen this take place with my friends. I have a friend who is an accountant, and a couple of months ago, he had I want to say either a Colombian or Venezuelan couple come into his tax preparation office, and long story short, he doesn't have anyone there that speaks Spanish. And so at the time, he called me, and I basically helped carry out this tax preparation session, translating for this family and for my friend. Again, some of you may not like that, but I personally like that. Why? Number one, I'd attribute that to part of the reason why my fluency has improved. And when I say fluency, I'm just saying my flow in the language, being able to articulate myself in any situation, being able to explain things even if I don't know the specific word. That kind of finesse, that kind of agility in the language is developed by putting yourself in unique situations like this. So, I mean, a parent-teacher conference here. I remember a couple of days ago I was in the bank and these Venezuelan guys couldn't understand what the bank teller was telling them just to open up a checking account. And so I just slightly stepped in like, permiso, está bien si le ayudo. Ah, bueno, entonces me metí, right? And so I'd say letting people know that you speak Spanish, it's something that you should be doing if you're not already. The caveat here is obviously your Spanish level needs to be somewhat decent, right? You don't want your family or friends or your social network to call you to translate something that you're unable to translate, right? That doesn't help. But if you're at a level where you can do that, I'd highly recommend doing that. Some of you may call me out for contradicting myself with this fourth point, but the fourth thing that I think te toca hacer, right? O sea, te obliga a hacer, that you're obligated to do as a Spanish speaker, as a second language learner of Spanish, is travel, okay? Now, you guys know I have a love-hate relationship with travel. I like traveling, but I genuinely love my life here, and so I don't have this burning desire to break up the monotony of my life. Like, my life isn't monotonous even here. Like, next weekend I'm driving to North Carolina. The weekend after that, a friend of mine, we're going to like a little small town in Georgia to hike a mountain. So like, there's not monotony in my life. Either way, I think the beauty and the necessity for travel is that if you speak Spanish, you need to put yourself in that environment in a foreign country to really test your Spanish level, to really prove to yourself that yes, you speak the language. Again, I'm not one of these people that thinks that being in another country is what can teach you the language, but I am someone that feels that the feeling the feeling that when you travel to another country and you're able to get around and just take care of yourself, you know what I mean? You you can purchase things, you can communicate anything you need to communicate. You're not lost when people are speaking to you. You're not confused. You're like in manejas la situación bien, right? My neighbors are distracting me playing these oldies. Give me 1 second. Yeah, they're not going to stop. But when you can defend yourself in another country, it does something for your linguistic self-esteem. And so I really think that as a part of your language learning journey, traveling to a Spanish-speaking country is necessary. Not for everybody. We've seen cases on my channel where we've got plenty of people that have not done that. But I think just personally for me, there's a level of satisfaction there. There's a level of confirmation there that comes when you travel to another country, because it's just some things are just impossible to pick up. Like, I just don't know if I would have been as aware of just certain sayings that are common in markets, certain things that people say when you're entering places or leaving places. Like, just I don't know. I just think it's a necessary step, and it's something that you should do. And I'm actually, once my health gets back to 100%, I'm able to fly again after this carbon monoxide poisoning. I'll be doing a little bit more of that as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if this was articulated well. Again, I'm always questioning myself because I get distracted here, but hopefully that point makes sense. Again, I'm not a travel advocate 100%, but I do think it's something that we should all try to check off of our list at some point while learning the Spanish language. The fifth thing that you should be doing if you speak Spanish, the fifth thing that you should be trying to do regularly if you speak Spanish, is incorporate the language into your daily life. And you should really try to incorporate it into your life at a bigger scale outside of just using the language. Now here's what I mean. At a certain point, guys, like, learning Spanish should not be secondary. Like, it should not be compartmentalized in your life and I shouldn't even say learning Spanish. The language itself should not be compartmentalized in your life. It should just be intertwined. It should be ingratiated into your daily life so that you're not even consciously studying anymore. How does this look tangibly? This could be, again, your phone being in Spanish. Because people say your phone being in Spanish is helpful, but not that much. It actually is, guys. If you've never had your phone in Spanish, at least with an iPhone, Wikipedia comes up in Spanish at that point. Like when you Google things, your search results will typically be in Spanish first. If you look up a disease, excuse me, you know how WebMD has like a list of symptoms and causes and cures for diseases? All that kind of stuff that's embedded in the web browser comes out in Spanish. And so that can keep you consistently exposed to the language, but that could be something you do. Weekly, going to a language exchange. Like I said, near Lenox Mall out here in Atlanta, I go there whenever I can. Again, going back to the point about speaking to people, you should make a conscious effort, and not just because they're Spanish speakers, but try to make new friends. And if they so happen to be Spanish speakers, speak to them regularly. I mean, you just need to incorporate the language into your life. If you can incorporate it rather into your job, I mean, do that. Do that. If you own a business, I mean, any way that you can, you should be incorporating it into your life so that it's no longer a task. It's no longer something that you consciously have to think about. It's just is almost it's as visceral, as natural as the English language is for you if that's your native language. The other thing I like to say is, like I said, I'm moving forward in a place in my life in which I'd like to use the language as a conduit to some other greater benefit. And I'm doing that in my job, of course, right? Teaching students English, and I'm using the language there. But I'm not opposed to going to some rural community annually, right? For the next, every summer. I have the luxury of having summers off, but I'm not opposed to spending 2 months every summer in some rural community in Panama or Peru or somewhere, teaching English for a group of underprivileged children, or going off the coast of Costa Rica and helping with, you know, plastic removal on some of the contaminated beaches. Something where the focus is not the language itself, but I'm using the language consistently to help some greater cause. That's where my mentality is now, and I think that we should all evolve to that point where studying itself is not the means by which we interact with the language. And so hopefully that last point again makes sense. Again, you guys' feedback is what confirms whether or not these vague video ideas are actually tangibly helpful. So again, these are 5 ways that you should be incorporating Spanish into your life if you speak it at an intermediate to advanced level. Those of you that are at beginner levels, if you can augment this a little bit and apply it to your lives and your learning process. But either way, I think these are things that you all should be doing if you're not doing. And in the comments below, let me know if you have any other things that you should be doing, that you consider things that other things that you consider are things that we should be doing if we speak Spanish. And let me know if you're doing these things that I've listed in the comments below. Los aprecio mucho, como siempre les digo, y yo me voy a acostar para recuperarme de esta gripa. Chao chicos, hasta la próxima.